All right, happy Monday. Hello, every beautiful body out there. We have missed you over the weekend. I feel like we weren't here on Friday. So, of course, this is a great opportunity for us to re engage you. So, again, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Blair G. Hervey. I am the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. I'm joined by my colorful co host, my bestie, my soul friend of 20 plus years, The Corporate Strategist, independent consultant. He's a DEIBA speaker, ready for hire, self-proclaimed diversity geek, and his name is D'Angelo Crane. Hi, D.
Well, hello, Queen Charlotte to my Lady Denbury. They were another
Ah!
epic, they were another epic friendship, as you know, if you've been watching Queen Charlotte. Where I'm always excited about being here on the Black Diva Collector stage to bring a little light, love, and laughter to our great community and viewers. So it's been awesome. So, Blair, can I tell you what I'm excited about today?
Of course.
I am excited that yesterday I went with some close friends to New York City for Pride, and so we went to the Pride Parade, which is a beautiful sight of just all kinds of people coming together to share love, laughter, joy, and then we went over to Harlem, which was celebrating Harlem Pride. Well, not Harlem Pride, but celebrating Pride too, but in our own blackity black fashion. And so it was just a feeling of black love, black joy, black queerness. There were celebrities hanging out there. Bevy Smith, shout out to her. So it was a really exciting time yesterday to be in the city of New York. I just felt so free to be in my own skin. So really excited. So that's what I'm excited about today. A little tired from that because we got back at 1 a.m., but I'm here in the place and present.
I love it. And it was great to see you showing all that skin. Anywho, well, we're also excited because we do have a special guest today. Hello, Lindsay. Thank you for coming and thank you for being here. We're excited to have you as well.
Hi, Blair. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Well, hello, hello, hello. Well, welcome everyone again to the Black Diva Collective Live. We always like to start our segment with something sunny. Well, I don't know why I've always called it that, but it always makes me happy. But D'Angelo, you want to kick us off?
Well, thanks, Blair. But I want to say that just you starting the show off with your welcome to every beautiful body makes everyone excited. People always say that's so sunny too. So I'm going to give you that energy back. But Blair, what we would like to do right now is what we call the art of the check-in, and basically is where we really take a moment to see how everyone is feeling, doing, and living in their life. And why do we do that? Because Blair, we're asking leaders and colleagues to do more of this each and every day. If you want to build empathy, trust, and vulnerability on your team, you first start with some of the building meaningful conversations. And the way to do that is just by saying, how are you doing? And so we do it a little deeper here at the Black Diva Collective. We like to say, Lindsay, how's your heart? How's your mind? How's your soul? How are you feeling today?
I feel wonderful. And in fact, it's funny. I just posted a quote from author Grace Paley on LinkedIn the other day, and it said, "Every morning when you wake up, you must take your heart in your two hands."
Ooh, that was deep. It gave you a little pause there, did it, D?
Blair, how's your heart, your mind, your soul, and your hair today?
Thank you. These buns are cute. I'm here for it. I just really love this particular style. So y'all may see more of it, but I say that and then I may come back with my red hair. Who knows? But I'm very excited. This Thursday, I will be off to France. And I'm sure we'll be making a much more major announcement, but we will be pausing new shows just for July while I'm gone. But I will be studying fashion and I'll be bringing back a 20-year-old dream and we'll see where the good Lord takes me. So that's got me really excited and full right now. So I'm happy. D'Angelo, yes, sir.
I like we're not pausing. We're having a summer refresh, is what I'm calling it, because every show needs to take a break. So we're having a summer refresh so we can go refresh our energies and come back excited. But we'll talk more about it later this week. I'm excited about you're launching a book. So it's advantageous that we're talking today about self-publishing. So this is exciting. But then you're off to Paris, which I'm super excited about. And I hope that when you come back, you'll be able to sew me up all kinds of fabulous fashions, right? Because
I
you're going
will.
to school.
Absolument. Oui.
Okay.
D'Angelo, how is your head? How's your heart? How's your soul? When I come back, I'll be able to ask you that in French.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to answer in French. I'm still gonna answer in my regular old Kentuckian, like, girl, I'm doing all right, girl. No, I'm joking. I am fantastic today. I'm good. My soul is present. It's not rested, but it's present. So there you go. Yes, I'm good today.
Well, fantastic. Well, I can tell your energy is always radiating in a beautiful way, in a bountiful way. So I'm excited to get into this conversation with you as well as with Lindsay. If you are not familiar with Lindsay, Lindsay is a book coach, and she actually helps business professionals, public speakers, advocates, educators, and experts through transformative journeys from writer to published author. Her decades long career in print management and publishing as an award winning self publisher perfectly positions her to act as a book project manager and accountability buddy. What my friend and I, not D'Angelo and I, but we call accountability buddy. So thank you again for being here, Lindsay. We're excited to get into this conversation. So listen, I did the reading of the bio, which we always do, but we'd love for folks to actually tell us in their own words how they got into this work and what positioned you to start working specifically with women of color.
Well, I got into the work, I think, really very early on when I was at UMass Amherst. I got into an individual study program where I combined women's studies and journalism. I started in the journalism department, but it was so conventional, it was so mainstream, I really didn't want to stay there. I knew that women's voices, this was back in the 70s, women's voices were just coming in. Books by women were, much more scarce than they are today. It's kind of hard to believe that there were hundreds of women's bookstores nationwide in the 70s and the 80s. Most of them are closed now, and most of the women's publications are now, in the mainstream. But I felt that there were definitely ways to grab the communication vehicles, whether that was periodicals, publications, underground magazines, books, whatever it was, and go independent, go rogue, go on the outside, because the mainstream publishing companies were pretty zipped up. There's a lot of academics and intellectuals and snobbery, and of course the white systemic hierarchies are pretty much locked up. It's hard to get into that ivory tower. And I find independent publishing is a great way for anybody to get into publishing their voice, their work, their books, whether it's short articles or longer pieces. They can take the means of production into their own hands today, which is a big change from years ago.
Yeah.
I sort of stumbled into a few clients. I talk to people on discovery calls all the time, and I'm getting lots of people of color who are wanting to publish, and all kinds of people from all over the place. And I'm working with 2 DEI books right now, and they're coming from 2 very different directions. I find that this is kind of an interesting way to expand the conversation. And I'm helping these people through accountability and through being basically a project manager. A lot of people want to publish books, but they don't want to become a publishing company. They just want to publish 1 or 2 books and get their thought leadership out there. And so just plugging into a book coach, somebody that can bring you the path. Basically, they bring me the thought leadership, and I bring them the path and the way that they can get their voices out there. And my role in terms of, say, content or input is just to basically assess people's manuscripts and help them to construct them in a way that is competitive and comparative to the commercial books that are currently out there.
Okay.
Because that's kind of one of the 3 mistakes that self-publishers make.
Well, Lindsay, before you, because I feel like you're about to go on a roll.
I was.
Yeah, look, I heard it. Well, let D'Angelo pop on in here with some information, and I think he has some questions for you before you
Sure.
take us down that path. Thank you.
No, I love this conversation because I'm all about there's so much power in owning our own stories and being able to tell your story the way you want to tell it, right? And really only about 5% of roles in publishing staff, reviewers, and agents are Black. So today we're talking about the importance of publishing and particularly self-publishing, or Lindsay, as you called it, independent publishing. So really, let me just go. I had probably only heard this term maybe once or twice in my life. So when we brought this up, I was like, this is an interesting term. What does it mean to be an independent publisher? And also, how do, if I'm Black, right, or from an underrepresented community, or a community that doesn't have resources, how do I go about getting resources to even become an independent publisher, to go this route? So if you could just go back and tell us a little bit about what does it mean to be an independent publisher?
Well, basically, to be an independent publisher means that you are not using a commercial publishing platform. You're creating your own platform, and so you're paying for your own publication. You are deciding how you're going to publish. You get to make all the decisions on your title, your cover, and all the content. And nobody, whether it's an editor or a designer or anybody else that's involved on your team, can tell you what to do. When you go with commercial publishers, they really, once you sign the contract, they basically hold the copyright and the terms of conditions. And most of the time, they are going to be the ones, because they're holding the bag for marketing and for the success of the book. They want to give the book title. They want to design the cover. A lot of times you hear authors in conventional and commercial publishing situations sometimes feel like they're not being heard because the publisher is commandeering the process because they're the commercial engine that's running the thing. And they don't want their authors necessarily. You can put in your requests, but a lot of times they're going to make all those final decisions. So that's independent. Independent is you create the content, you pay for the content without any interference from a commercial publisher.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I was going to ask that question as well. Just like D'Angelo said, selfishly, I am currently in the process of self-publishing. And you and we spoke, I think, before I had written the book.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. Originally, I looked back at my notes. I think it was 2020.
Oh, so we've spoken twice then.
Yeah, but recently I just talked to you in May or March, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. I forgot about a couple years ago. See, D'Angelo, cultivating those relationships. I think it was.
I know how you do, honey. I know you love to talk to people. This is your niche, honey. Okay. Yes.
So the name of my book is Making 100K Without a Degree, Your Mental Growth Guide to Financial Freedom. And so I've been going through that process and thinking about it. And I've kind of started and stopped a little bit. But when I read a part of this story, this encouraged me. So let me just read it to y'all real quick. It says, I make 2.5 more from my self-published books than I do from my traditionally published ones. And that's largely due to earning much more on each individual sale. Now, this is from Michael J. Sullivan. This is a white man, white author. But this is what was interesting to me. Sullivan, as it turns out, secured his publishing deal with Orbit Books around the same time as N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin is a Black woman, a Black author, and she writes these really cool Black sci-fi stories. D, if you don't know anything about them, you need to read them. Like, they're set in like Louisiana during Katrina. Like, it's really, really futuristic, really cool. So his advance was 22.5, hers was 25,000. Initially, he sold more books than she did, but eventually she did, and their paths crossed at each attempted mastery over their respective genres. But this last thing that it went on to say, it says, but then they diverged. Sullivan decided to self-publish. Jemisin stayed with Orbit. And he says, I was earning a full-time income long before she did, mainly due to my self-published novels. And so when I think about that, of course, well, not of course, but of course, I thought, well, he is a white man as well. So maybe that's another reason he's making more. But the other part of that I thought about, I was like, it costs so much to self-publish, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And as a Black woman, it costs a lot to self-publish. Then I have to do all the marketing. Then I have to do all the book touring. But there is a long-term game for me to make more on each individual sale. How do you coach Black women or women of color or underrepresented authors in that direction, encourage them to go in that direction, even though they're going to have to foot more or pay more up front?
Well, there's a couple of things going on here. One is genre.
Okay.
When you're talking about a white guy who's writing a bunch of fiction,
Hmm.
what happens is the first book probably didn't do that much, but as he's starting to gain steam and following, what happens is with these people that follow fiction, especially, they'll get onto an author and they'll just buy every book that person writes.
Okay.
And so once he's on a roll with his fiction, that's just gonna be sort of an income that's gonna be rolling along. So it's critical mass and gravity and time in the industry on in sales. That's number one.
Okay.
Uh, but number two, I tell people when it comes down to selling books, and because I've chose my niche, basically, I've always been interested in nonfiction my whole career, and even just as a reader, as a young person, I've always focused on nonfiction. I kind of believe with my editor who says, real life is so interesting. Who needs fiction? Um, and also because I'm really more of an activist and an advocate, my genre is definitely nonfiction because I want people to be able to read about how to process uh, programs for moving forward, whether that's DEI or how to draw. I mean, whatever it is. I want people to go through transformative experiences and to learn things from people's thought leadership. But here's the thing, when you print as an independent, you're probably going to use print on demand technology. And what that means is digital technology. And that's what Amazon is using. A lot of people, I have to do a lot of education with people because a lot of people buy books on Amazon and they don't even know where they come from. It's sort of like going to the supermarket and you think that peppers come in a plastic box. Uh, it's like I'm going to buy a book on Amazon, but they're not quite sure how that all happens. And many of the books, depends on where they're coming from, are print on demand. And what that means is Amazon is now going to go print the book.
Hmm.
Hasn't even been printed yet. Back in the day when people used to use offset lithography, which was all mechanical process, publishers would have to print at least 1,000 or 1,500 books up front to get cost benefits and make any profit at all. But now with print on demand technologies, the digital part of it means you can print one book at a time for that same cost. So your costs are coming down. You don't have a lot of rigmarole with the mechanical process and the make ready and all that junk. So it really is print on demand. Once you print a book, you've got the digital specs in there. The press operator just goes to that file and clicks it in, and your book is printed. And then it gets shipped. One of the only things that happens with authors, though, is you don't know who's buying your books because Amazon is not going to tell you where they're shipping. They will only give you a monthly royalty report on how many sales have been made, and that deposit will automatically go into your account, your publishing account as publisher. So what I usually tell people is thought leaders, educators, advocates, experts, all of those people, most of the people I'm working with are making money consulting and speaking and doing workshops and all that kind of thing. They're going to make a lot more money doing that than they are on the book itself. Truthfully, the statistics on book sales are somewhat grim, seriously. As far ago as 2007, self-published books and independently published books far eclipsed the number of books and titles coming out from commercial printers. It doesn't mean they're making more money. It just means there's more of them.
Right.
And so what I tell my clients is, book is business card. This is your lead magnet. This is getting your thought leadership out there so that you can find new ways to promote your services and your products, to get the speaking gig, to do the conference, to do whatever you want to put out there in terms of your thought leadership or advocacy. I actually am working with a client right now who is very involved in the foster care system. And she's actually influencing policy nationally to get the age of foster kids higher so that they don't get thrown out into the street when they're so young.
Right.
And she's actually influencing policy in California. And California, as you know, is a big state. And as policy in California goes, it usually spreads nationwide. So this is the type of thing that my authors are trying to do, is they're trying to really influence groups, trying to influence thought leadership, trying to get, you know, basically the three things that having a book is going to do for you. It's going to raise your profile. It's going to immediately give you authority and credibility. And it's going to leverage you to the point where it's going to soften your prospects. Anybody that reads your book is now going to be open to your thought leadership because they have already heard a little bit about it. You don't have to do nearly as much work to, you know, work with people that already know your philosophies and your direction. So the whole purpose of the book, in my particular genre and the way that I operate, is to help people that are usually, you know, they have their own businesses. Most of my people are truthfully advocates, teachers, experts, scientists, all kinds of people that have very specialized information and knowledge. Trauma therapy, hospice, DEI, meditation, all kinds of interesting topics where they're adding their voices to the public fray. So when it comes to costs and profits on books, truthfully, you might get a commercial contract. And like you mentioned, you quoted, okay, so his was $22,500 and hers was $25,000. A lot of times those advances that are paid are never earned out by the author. Many times they'll get a nonfiction book today by an unknown author. You'll probably get an advance of $5,000 to $25,000. Usually it's on the lower end, but most often then the publisher will keep track of how many books you sell. And if you don't earn out your royalties, forget it. That's the end of it. You're not getting any more money. And they made kind of maybe their contract, they made a bad bet. They paid a little too much or whatever. But that's the sad truth of it. And, you know, unless you're somebody like Michelle Obama or you already have a platform, you know, commercial publishing it's risky business. I mean, banks do not lend to publishers. I can tell you that. It's sort of it's very risky because it's a lot like the film business. You'll see a lot of movies, they'll do sequels and they'll do look-alike movies because they already know what's kind of successful in the marketplace and they're risk averse. So this is the cool thing about independent voices, is you've got something that you totally believe in, you want to get it out there. This is new thoughts and new attitudes that are going to move the needle. You're going to go publish that book. And, you know, you don't have to really spend a lot of money to publish a book these days. There's budgets, you know, you can do a book for almost any budget. You can do something as inexpensive as just do an ebook and without a fixed format. Would only cost you a few $100s to create that and be able to distribute it. And see, these POD, print on demand models like Amazon and other companies, the beauty part is not only do they print it digitally, but then they can distribute it very quickly because those distribution networks are all seamlessly intertwined. So you don't have to, it's not like a multiple process. And that's what Jeff Bezos came up with because he was in the financial sector before he went into books. You know, he likes click money. And it doesn't have to do too much work.
Right. It does work.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And just to summarize, so basically, it doesn't cost that much to necessarily self-published upfront. Don't expect to make a lot of money off of the book itself, because essentially you're going to be selling yourself as a full package as an author, which includes book tours, which includes workshops, which includes speaking engagements. So you'll eventually make more money there, and not have to worry about paying anyone back as well. So that's helpful. Thank you, Lindsay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that we probably don't have much time here, but I did have a couple of resources I wanted to throw in. Is that okay?
Well, D'Angelo has a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I think this may help us as we tie this up in a bow here. As you're doing a lot of work with around advocacy, and I love that, and being an ally, especially for Black voices and women of color. So you can talk to us a little bit more about what should allies be doing when it comes to helping people self-publish or really prop up their books or their writing or whatever they want to do around this space, that are allies. How should they show up for people, for underrepresented communities, especially Black authors who want to get into this space?
Well, I think that creating resources and education is a big key, because I talk to so many people from all walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds and education. And what I have found is that people read books. We've been reading books all of our lives, but have you ever written one? They're so cozy and comfortable, and they look wonderful. But you've eaten sausage, but you haven't made it. And so what happens is people kind of go into it thinking it's going to be, kind of straightforward, but there's just a lot of administrative little details. It's not really hard. It's just a lot of little details. So I do a lot of education, and I have resources on my website. Actually, I have a great resource that's a free guide for self-publishers.
Well, Lindsay,
and it's multiple pages.
Okay. Well, so you can give us the resources later. I just want to make sure that we want to spend this time asking the questions.
Yeah, I think education and providing resources and putting yourself out there on LinkedIn. I'm always putting myself out there. I do a lot of free discovery calls. I help people try to find the best route with their budget and their background, basically, to help them find the quickest and best solution for their project, and to avail myself and my background and my experience to help them solve it and to find the best solution.
Well, let me ask you one last question. So I did read that around this particular industry, obviously diversity hasn't been, like you said, at the very forefront of ensuring that other voices are heard and books are published. So we know that the lack of diversity really impacts the stories we read and who gets to tell them. How does self-publishing specifically influence that?
It gets people completely free to do their own thing, basically. And what's happened now, because of independent publishing and print on demand, lots of groups and coalitions are beginning to form that are helping segments and different people to get published. And, some people like me who are coming from traditional publishing, conventional commercial publishing, and we're all, I worked for McGraw-Hill companies. I got out of that whole thing because I wanted to be independent. And lots of people are doing this because publishing is an industry where a publishing company doesn't have like a whole bunch of employees. They have they're working with a lot of independent contractors. And we're all out there running around with our knowledge base and our backgrounds, helping all kinds of other people. So there's people from the traditional publishing industry that are now doing independent contracting with underserved communities. And they're actually creating networks for people to plug into. Like, how do you find a Black editor? What would you do? Where would you go?
Exactly.
These are issues that people like me can provide, because that's part of my allyship, is to create and find these resources to fast track people to the kinds of editors and designers and resources that they need. If you've never done it before, how would you know where to look?
Exactly. Well, that's really helpful. If you could email those to me, I'll make sure that they get dispersed to our community for sure. Thank you again for that knowledge, Lindsay. It's very helpful personally, and I'm sure to lots of folks out there. And it looks like someone from the audience also said that they got some good insight. So thank you for sharing that. Hey, D'Angelo, do you have a shout out for us today?
I do. This has been a treat. Okay, I've learned so much myself as well. So our shout out today is to makeup artist and interior designer architect Cedric Lamar, who is based out of New York. If you're looking for him, his clients includes Tammy Townsend and Casey Duke. He's also a contributor, makeup contributor to the Sherry Shepherd Show. So please check Cedric Lamar out on Instagram at Cedric Lamar Arts. Or use his services if you're ever in New York, or if you ever need someone to travel to you. So that's our DEIBA superstar shout out of the day, Blair.
Thank you, Dee. Well, Lindsay, again, we appreciate you carving out some time for us and sharing some knowledge with our audience. And we appreciate you all for showing up for us every single weekday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your daily dose of D&B with D&B. Thank you again for joining the Black Diva Collective Live. Y'all have a great day. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay.